Alright, today I'm going to go over clearomizers, how to adjust them, how to clean them, what an actual dry burn looks like. We don't recommend dry burn on our atomizers unless they get clogged to the point where they're almost unsavable. Dry burning consists of lighting them up until they turn cherry red. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take apart an atomizer, show you what it looks like from the inside out. This right here would be the mouthpiece. It does accumulate fluid in there from doing a hard draw, hard intake on it. It also accumulates fluid in there from the atomizer laying on its side. Of course, anytime you have wicking going up into the top where the air vent is, you're going to have a hole there so your fluid can wick in. So if it's laying on the side, that fluid will seep into the air hole, the air vent, whatever you want to call it. So I'll take this apart, show you what it looks like with it apart. That right there is the atomizer cover. What I use is you can use a paper clip, any kind of metal, the end bent on it, to pull that out. You basically stick it down in one of the side holes, not the center hole. That's your atomizer. You don't want to damage that. Stick it down inside just like that and pull it up. Got it crooked in there. Stick it down the other side. Pull it out. Alright. That inside there is your atomizer nest with your atomizer. The atomizer is actually the little tiny wire inside there. Let's see if I can get a good view of it. You can barely see the gray area in there. It's pretty small. But that is your actual atomizer. It looks like a little fuse filament. The hole underneath it is your wind tube or your vent hole. That's where your air comes through. When you get a gurgling sound, that's because too much fluid has got in there. Now, depending on where you're at and what the weather's like is depending on how your fluid's going to flow. You'll have to adjust your atomizer cover to adjust for that. If you've got a thicker fluid or if it's cold outside, you'll want to raise your atomizer cover up a little bit. If it's warm outside or you're inside, you'll want to push it down a little bit. Sometimes it gets pushed down too much just from refilling the liquid, and you have to pull it up. It creates a dry burn. If you ever see this portion of your clearomizer turning orange in dim light, that's because you're dry burning and it's getting too hot, and that will pop it. These are pretty rigorous. I mean, they'll take quite a bit of heat in there. But to adjust it, you'll want to line up the wicks with these little holes, right, these little side notches right here. That's where your wick goes through. The tighter it is over your wick, the less fluid you're going to have. If you've got a thinner liquid like the PG 75-25, you don't want much of a gap between that and your wicking. So I'll show you right now. As you can see, there's the wick. And there's a slot. We'll put it down on top of it, try to get it started evenly. And the best way to get it going down in there is to actually just take the cap, put it over the vent tube piece. You might have to twist a little bit to get it on there, and shove it down. Alright, then take a paper clip or whatever you're going to use and adjust it so it's lined up center. And as you can see, I've pretty much got that lined up on center. You see the little notch there. Alright, and it's still got, you can see there's, turn around here, there's a big gap there. That big of a gap, you lay it sideways, it's going to run fluid, it's going to gurgle, you're not going to get good vapor out of it. So you want to push it down, adjusting it according to how much you vape, the flavor, coldness outside. The colder it is, your liquid's not going to flow as well, and that'll create you to get a dry, nasty burn taste. But that's how I adjust it right there for 75-25. It's got a little tiny gap underneath it, and it works good. Every once in a while when it gets towards the end or my battery's going low, I'll start getting a gurgling sound in there. That's a good indication that your battery's going low. Simple fix. I mean, change your battery out or adjust it, push it in a little bit. But you want to know how to take that whole thing apart. Now I'm going to take the whole atomizer apart and show you what it looks like. Alright, the rubber piece is out. Now take the tube off. That tube just barely sits on there, and as you can see, there is a rubber ring that goes around it. That rubber ring seals it. So if you twist it on there too tight, it will disengage and leak. I don't know if you want to use glue to put it on there. The key is not to tighten it too tight. You just want to tighten these snug enough where it's going to make contact. It's what causes battery damage and everything else, which I'll show in another video. But that right there, these strings you see on here, these are ceramic strings. It's not a just a vinyl string. It's a ceramic string. That way it doesn't burn. I'll show you what a dry burn looks on a new atomizer. Maybe we can get this one to pop and blow up. There's a dry burn. You can see the atomizer turned black. That was a brand new atomizer. Dry burning again. You see how I held it for 5 seconds and I let off for 2 seconds for a cool down? You really don't want to hold these anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds while you're dry burning. I'll show you on a dirty one when I start cleaning it. But you can see it start turning orange. That's what you want to see when you have a nice clean atomizers. You'll see the whole thing turn orange like that. That's what it looks like when it's dry burned. You may think I'm burning the string, but I'll show you I'm not. Alright, here we go. We're going to burn this as much as we can. See if I can get a better view here. Alright, you'll see it'll start turning an orange color. Of course, I get a lighter that's almost out. Okay, here we go. And actually all it's doing is burning the material, the primer liquid that's on there. But it will not burn that string that's in there. So I mean, you can heat it up and heat it up and heat it up. It's not going to burn the wicking material. What we'll eventually do is that atomizer will actually give out from dry burning. That's why we don't recommend it. Some people will dry burn their stuff every day and it'll end up killing the life of it. But as you can see, that was a brand new atomizer when I started. Let's see if we can get it to pop before the battery turns it off. Well, the battery just started flashing and turned it off. So it takes a lot of times for you to actually burn one of these out. If you have one that's burning out, more than likely you're hitting some dry burn material, and it definitely can't taste good with the leftovers on there. Well, there goes the battery, timing it out again. So that's what that looks like. If you want to see, the atomizer still there. Still hadn't popped that atomizer. But that's what the inside looks like. Yeah, it's hot. So don't touch the ceramic cup after you've played with it a bit. After you dry burned it, it is hot. It will melt the rubber piece. It'll melt the plastic. That gets awfully hot in there. So now let's look at this and see what happens when we take it apart. This piece that comes apart, you can see inside there's a rubber gasket in there. So the rubber gasket keeps the fluid from leaking out. What happens a lot of times is people will over tighten this into their battery and it will smash that rubber gasket. And once it smashes that rubber gasket, it'll actually short it out. It can short out your battery. It can short it out where it's no longer working. So you don't want to over tighten anything you put on a battery. But that's what it looks like. Alright, so here's the dirty Clearomizer. Best way to clean these out is just with some hot water. Open them up, remove the atomizer cover, like I showed you earlier, and you can see that atomizer is dirty, real dirty. That's from chocolate mint. So I'm going to dry burn it for you, show you what it looks like when you first start firing this up. There it is right there. Cool it down a little bit. I can already start it smelling to burn. I can smell cinnamon. I had cinnamon in here too. You want to make sure you don't have that rubber plug on there while you're dry burning it. You want to take it off because, like I said, that ceramic atomizer nest gets hot. It's starting to turn orange. You can actually see the top of the nest is starting to turn a darker color because all the gunk that's on it is starting to burn to it. You want to let this cool down about 10 seconds between each dry burn. I'm not cooling it down for the reason I don't want this video to last all day. Sizzle's starting to go away. It's starting to really turn orange now. And you can see when it's turning orange, you can actually see the coils. You can see the coils in there, like you did on the new one. So that's almost pure clean. A lot less smoke, starting to turn orange. Alright, one more time. That's pretty much clean. I can see all the coils turning orange in there. Sizzling's almost gone. And that's as clean as you're going to get an older Clearomizer. I'll show you how to do an atomizer dry burn here in the future video, but that is it on the Clearomizer. There it is. Everything's glowing in there. That's as clean as you're going to get it. Now, before you put it back together, what I always do, so I remember, so I don't have to drop it down the vent hole, is always take a drop of fluid and drop it right down in on top of the atomizer. That way it doesn't dry burn on you. And plus it takes away some of that nasty taste out of the first hit. Alright, it's nice and wet now, so we can put it back together. I'll line up the wicking holes on the atomizer cover with the atomizer. There's the wicks. Yeah, come on. I'll push it down with the cap. Alright, see if this will focus. You can see I've got a big gap in between there. There's a big gap. Now I want it just sitting right off the top. So I'm going to push it in and I'm going to adjust it. It's easier if you just do both sides a little bit so it goes evenly. Alright, now I've got a little tiny gap above the wicking material. So now I'll use my fluid. Put my fluid tip to one side. That's probably about right. If you can see, I don't have it filled all the way up. It's about 3/4 full. I filled it up to the bottom of the atomizer nest, and it is right to the bottom of the vent tube. All right, I'll put it back on. Tilt it upside down. Get the wicks nice and wet. Take me a nice hit of it. Oh, I got some gurgling sound in there from that fluid I dropped down. And it's hitting again. Just like it was brand new again. Clean out the mouthpiece. And it's hitting all over again. So that's the way to clean it out. If you're not getting much airflow through it, one thing that I do is I use the gum dental pick. And a lot of times, because these sit in people's pockets and lint builds up in the battery because they don't clean it enough, when you're trying to inhale, that stuff will go in through your battery right into here. So I'll use this dental pick and I'll clean it out, make sure there's nothing in there. It'll go all the way in there. You don't want to put it through to the other side because the other side actually has the atomizer in it, so you don't want to push through the other side, just this side. Clean it out. Make sure there's no fluid up in the mouthpiece again. And put it back on the battery. And it's vaping all over again, just like I wanted it. Alright, the mouthpiece, wash it out with fluid, with water, warm water. That's the best way to do it. Also, the top of it has a clean out. You see that little space in between there? You can see I've got fluid in there. You can bite down on the end to pop it out or whatever you want. Just remember that is a choking hazard. I usually don't pop them out. I used to pop them out just to get more wind flow through there, but I found it's better for more vapor if I just left it in. What I do is I just wash the whole thing out, blow through it, and get it dried out and start over again. And that's it.